Hi everyone, welcome to today's show, Coffee Break with PCEB, and today we welcome our special guest, Mr. Philip C., CEO of Firefly. Hi Philip, how are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me? All good?
Yes, all good. You sound great. You've got that
Thanks.
special broadcast voice, I can tell. You've got your gear with the earphones and the mic. You look fantastic.
Yes, all ready to answer your questions.
Yeah, let's take a sip of coffee as we get ready to start our session today. Ladies and gentlemen,
cheers.
Once again, all of you, welcome to the show. So, Philip, tell us a little bit about how you've been filling your time during this lockdown. MCO, FMCO, now in KL is EMCO.
Oh, it's been very tough. I must say with EMCO, because you're kind of stuck at home. You're really just either doing work or just being reflective and being inward. So it has been a very challenging time. So I must say, yeah, not so easy, but we're all planning ahead, thinking about the future, thinking about what we need to do once this whole episode is over.
And are you based in Penang or based in Subang?
I'm based in PJ. I'm a PJ boy.
I see.
Yes, but I love coming to Penang. I mean, even before Firefly, I'll come to Penang, every 3 months, 4 months. I love it, I used to do projects here in Penang. So it's a place I love coming. And, it's one of the first places I'm going to come to when this whole lockdown is over.
Fantastic. So we talk a little bit about Firefly. We know started off with 2 turboprop planes back in the day. How many years ago was that? Flying to a few destinations?
14 years ago, right?
Wow.
Long time, yes. So I think I've been running the business for about 3 years, but I'm the third leader. And so my initial predecessor, Eddie Leong, he set it up really as an alternative to Malaysia Airlines because, we wanted to be innovative and try different things. And he thought Penang was a great place to set up an airline. And that's what he did.
I remember it flew to a few destinations on the East Coast. If I'm not wrong, Kota Baru, Kuantan, Kuala Terengganu.
Yep, and we still operate to Kota Baru before the pandemic, and we also did operate services to Kuantan. But since then we've expanded. We have services to Langkawi, Banda Aceh, Phuket, and of course to Subang.
I remember those days. I flew constantly to Phuket for shows up there. That was my favorite destination.
Really? Was it shows or holiday?
Yeah, we'd go out. I would go up to host some shows up in Phuket. And when you guys flew to Krabi, I did take the chance to fly to Krabi for one time and a couple of trips to Koh Samui as well. So I definitely hope you bring those flights back.
Well, it's very interesting to observe what they do with the Phuket sandbox and how successful that sandbox is. Because if that's successful, I have a sneaking suspicion that Penang Phuket could come online sooner than we expect. So very interesting to see how our cases evolve and whether Thailand opens up and whether the sandbox does succeed.
Yeah, it is very interesting. They just started that on the 1st of July to open up to selected visitors, those who have been vaccinated and certain conditions that you meet, and then you can go in without any quarantine period.
That's true. Yeah.
It's exciting. We look forward.
Yeah, and I think there will be quite a lot of demand from Penang. There's a lot of pent-up demand. So worth waiting to see how this works out. And if Thailand, I think, relaxes the requirements for Penang and for Malaysia, I think this could be something we could launch as early as Q4 this year. So let's see, wait and see.
Exciting.
Yeah.
So from the 2 planes that you started off with, of course, it's grown tremendously. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your plans to diversify into jet operations now. I heard that's the latest.
Yeah, so I think when you talked about when we started off about 14 years ago, we had 2 Fokker 50s. They were very small aircraft. We've expanded a bit since then. So we've got about 9 to 10 aircraft now of ATR 72s that operate from Penang and Subang. But as you mentioned, we are going to expand to operate jet services and introduce Penang. We actually started the services in May from Penang to JB and also progressively planned for Penang to Kota Kinabalu and Kuching. But as a result of the lockdowns, we've had to suspend it. But once all this clears up, we will be resuming services back again, jet operations.
I think this will be very instrumental to bring travelers into Penang, you know, because direct flights from JB, Kota Kinabalu and Kuching, very attractive both ways.
Yeah, it will be, I think it will drive a lot of demand, and it's very useful because if you think about JB, it's connecting to Singapore. And one of the things about Penang Airport is that they've really been aggressive in attracting a lot of overseas carriers. So you can see actually a lot that potentially will hub into Penang and then feed and flow through to JB, Kuching and BKI, hopefully, instead of going by KLIA. So let's see what happens there.
Yeah, we look forward to that, yeah? Okay, so as we go into the questions that have been prepared today, the first one, we want to talk about the current situation of the airline industry. And I believe it is quite tough right now, but maybe you can walk us through since March 2020 and then how it's progressed until the current day.
It's a very tough time, but it's been a roller coaster, I have to say. Because in March last year, when we entered into the pandemic, I think the whole world was going through a really tough time, and there was not much certainty. And as you know, at the time, there were no vaccines available. So that was a bit tough and challenging. And then as we entered into Q3 last year, you saw more confidence pick up again, and you saw more travel happen. And the optimism did rise. And then in Q4 in Malaysia, that's when you saw cases start rising again. But travel was still going on, but getting a bit weaker already. And then that's when the vaccine started coming out, right? But at that time in Asia, that was the worst of its time in the United States and Europe, right? When the COVID crisis was at its peak. So fast forward to now, right, which is about 5, 4, 6 months ahead, what you see is that actually the US and UK are thriving, right? Travel is really moving up very fast. Whereas on our side, you know, it is very tough and challenging. And for a lot of airlines like myself and being part of the Malaysia Aviation Group, the group was very fortunate to take a lot of tough measures to ensure that we would remain sustainable and manage our cost. And so we did that. We renegotiated a lot of our aircraft leasing agreements. We renegotiated with our vendors. We cut a lot of cost. A lot of our salaries were also cut. And a lot of my colleagues who are pilots, cabin crew, they took a lot of salary cuts, and they're not flying, so they don't generate allowances. So it's been very tough for the industry, but the good thing is that the teams are very resilient and working very hard to just stay positive, but it's been very tough. And I say, and my heart goes out to everyone in the industry, but it's not only us in the aviation, right? As you know, it's the hotel industry, the tourism infrastructure. Everyone is really feeling the brunt, and it's pretty hard at the moment.
Yes. And given these tough times, has the company tried to diversify its services, try to find other streams of revenue?
Yeah, so we have, and if you see in Firefly, we did launch this Firefly Air Cargo, which is where you can do airport to airport delivery services. So we have introduced that, but we're also very careful on what we do, because the thing about introducing new services is that these things require investments, and also, especially for things like these things, there is a lot of payback time, and we are all very tight in our cash and constraints. So we have to be very careful and thoughtful. So we have introduced products like FY Air Cargo to diversify. And even when we did Firefly Holidays, we even did staycation packages. So you didn't even need to fly with us, right? You could even still book hotels through our holiday platform. So those are the things we did introduce. But we didn't, of course, go the full-blown super app solution as many of our other competitors did, because we think that that requires a lot more careful thought in where we invest our money in.
Very interesting. And I've heard the good news that some of your lovely staff have been volunteering at the vaccination centers in Penang, so helping out with the vaccination centers that have been set up all over the state. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so I think it started off about a month ago in KL, because what we saw was that that more people are coming in to get vaccinated, but you know, they just older people. So needed a bit of TLC, a bit of tender loving care. And our cabin crew are the best in doing it, right? They know how to serve customers. And so Firefly has a cabin crew base there. And so I'm very proud of the 18 of them who are spending time at all the PPVs in Penang to help, the older folks get vaccinated and make the experience to get vaccinated much easier. And so they are now stationed there, and they're very happy to do it because they haven't served customers for such a long time. And this is such a great opportunity to serve people. And so they're loving it. People are loving it. So it's a win-win for everybody, in my view.
Yes. So greet the people coming for vaccination with a smile, help them to fill in their forms if they need some help.
Yeah, it's to make the experience
so lane to go.
Correct. It's to make the experience so easy so that nobody will hesitate at all to get vaccinated. Because what we want to do in this country is to make sure that the process of getting vaccinated is easy. It's not difficult. It's painless. And you're going to be looked after when you see a Firefly cabin crew at the vaccination center.
Wonderful. Keep up the good work and well done to all the team from Firefly. Thank you for helping out. We've got to go on to some of the other questions that we have. And okay, the next one is, what are the future offers or plans that we can expect coming up from you as we see vaccinations ramped up and maybe domestic travel opening up first? What are some of the interesting promotions that can be looked forward to?
Yeah. So in my view, right, this pandemic will end, but it will transition to an endemic. That means I don't think we can run away from COVID, and you see that classically happening in Europe, where because people are getting more vaccinated, they're still getting COVID, but it is not severe and not serious. So what we need to do is to create that confidence of people to travel. And one of the big things we're doing is, we are introducing COVID insurance, where there's coverage in case you get COVID. We actually even will be working with partners to get you COVID tested, even before and after departure. We are going to look at the processes to make the whole experience contactless. So, we're going to focus on very relevant and important products that will make your life and your journey easy. Right. So there's none of this super wow stuff, right? So we're going to make sure that there's travel protection. We're going to give you the option, if you want, to get tested before and after departure. If you come on board, if you don't have the COVID testing kit, we will try and make that available. So those are the things we're going to do to make you have peace of mind and so that you can travel confidently with Firefly. So that's what we're going to do.
Fantastic. How about the onboard safety protocols? What changes? Are there going to be any seating changes or the way that we enjoy our in-flight meal and so forth?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. And so if you look at the current layout, right, there's no capacity restriction, but we've actually had to tweak our algorithm to make sure that we create distance really between customers whenever we can, right? Especially when we board passengers on board. So that's something we've actually put in place. But we're also revamping our offering on board our ATRs, where instead of the past where we would serve you in juices or give you in open items, we're actually going to create a small little goodie bag and give you with a chocolate bar and all that. So it's easy for you to take away from you, and you don't need to eat it at the airport, at the aircraft. So those are the things we're going to do. And of course, we will do the usual sanitation and the disinfection overnight aircraft. So those are the things we've been always doing since the pandemic as a safety protocol.
There was another product called the Firefly Passport, introduced sometime last year. You can tell us about that, and then whether it's going to make a comeback, maybe in a modified form, something like that.
Yeah, so just to explain, the Firefly Passport is you pay a bulk sum of money, and then you can have the flexibility to fly how many times you want or when you want over a certain period of time. It's great value for someone who travels a lot, right? And if you can plan to travel in advance, it's a great tool, and it's super value for money and cheap. So we did introduce it, and we can introduce it when we want to, but we have to be careful when we do it, because there's going to be so much uncertainty when you travel, and whether there'll be lockdowns or not, that it wouldn't be good for the customer if we offer it, and then later in 2 months' time, let's say the government does do another lockdown again. So we have to be careful when we do these things. So we might look at that in the later future, but I don't see us doing it in the short term until there's some stability in the travel pattern.
I see. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
We hope that you do bring something in like that back. We look forward to that.
Sure.
Okay. What are your thoughts and expectations on the future of air travel? What are going to be the fundamental changes that you foresee happening in the industry?
That's a very tough question. And I say tough because I have more certainty about the longer term future as opposed to the shorter term. I think the shorter term will be very volatile. Things will just move up and down. Sometimes there will be a surge, sometimes there will be a decline. There could be introduced lockdown measures again, we don't know. So I think, in my honest view, the next 1 year will be quite volatile, and we just have to be ready for that. But I do think end of next year, early next year, or early 23, when things a bit more stabilized, we should see a more stable growth pattern. And in my calculations and assessments, I do think for the domestic market, we should return to pre-COVID in 23, and for international, probably in 2024. That's my estimation.
And how viable do you think these travel bubbles are? They talked about Singapore, Hong Kong, now talking about Singapore, New Zealand, if I'm not wrong, and between Australia and New Zealand also, I think they're in current negotiations. So how viable do you think and workable do you think these air travel bubbles are?
I don't think they work. I don't think they work. And I think you can see that evidently with Singapore, Hong Kong. They tried it so many times. I don't think they will work. What I think is workable is if we tag it to people who get vaccinated. And if the destinations hit a certain threshold of being vaccinated, I think that could work. So if we say people can start traveling when they're fully vaccinated with the right vaccines endorsed by WHO, if a certain country has managed to contain their infectivity rate, if they're able to get a certain percentage or threshold of the population fully vaccinated, I think that is the way forward. I mean, an example is the UK, right? If you look at the UK, so in Malaysia, we have very high cases because of the Delta variant. In the UK also, their cases are going up because of the Delta variant. However, because 60% of the population at least got their first dose, the death rate is almost the same. It hasn't actually changed. So more people are getting COVID, but it's not serious. And as a result of that, there is confidence to continue with life because COVID can be managed, COVID can be contained. And I think that's a strategy that governments must take, which is you can't eradicate COVID, but if you can manage COVID and reduce and manage the health infrastructure, I think that's the most practical way for us to reopen our economies and markets.
That's very true. Have you heard about the proposed travel to Langkawi, where they propose to vaccinate all the inhabitants or the population of Langkawi and allow guests who have been vaccinated to travel there?
Yes, I have. I think, and I think it's a worthwhile experiment to do because they're islands, right? Singapore is an island. It's an experiment worth trying. Langkawi is an island. Even if you recall 3-4 weeks ago with Labuan, right, when there was a rise in cases, our vaccine minister immediately sent vaccines over to Labuan because he really wanted to see whether you can contain COVID. And I do think it's a worthwhile effort, although I'm not sure what the progress is, and I really hope they make that work. But it's a great test bed to get places like Langkawi or even the islands in Terengganu of the staff vaccinated, because it is a great way for us to slowly reintroduce travel bubbles. And, you know, with Penang, one thing great about Penang is that, you know, you have improved and ramped up your vaccinations. We are now in phase 2. We used to operate Penang Langkawi services. And if that works, I think that would be awesome.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So looking forward to when you're reopening your full operations, other than the local destinations that have been mentioned, we talk about JB, Kota Kinabalu, Kuching. Of course, there's Subang, Kota Baru. Where else are you aiming at? Where else do you aim to fly into?
Look, I think one thing to look very carefully in Penang, I feel, is I do see a surge in medical tourism. So Sumatra is a worthwhile place to look.
Medan is a favorite, yes.
Yeah, I think that's something really to look. So the classic Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore markets will be very key. And that's something we are looking very closely at end of next year. Right. But I do think also that charter operations is something that we should actively prepare for, because I think there will be a lot of groups who are willing to start traveling if you are able to manage the itineraries well. Yes. So, and charter offers you that solution. And, you know, conventions, meeting bureaus, I think the Ministry of Tourism is also very invested to focus in making those kind of meetings work, because you can kind of control the itinerary, you can kind of manage the journeys quite well. So in my view, I think that if Malaysia gets its tourism strategy right and targets the things that are easy to manage with clear itineraries like conventions and MICE, I think we can slowly build confidence gradually and slowly.
Do you think you'll be doing these charters with the turboprop or the jets?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think my view, and this is a conversation I have with the team a lot, the economics of jet on a per pax is better than turboprop. But if you have a small group, right, who want to travel, then perhaps turboprop works. But one of the big challenges with turboprop is that their range is not very far. So you can't really do crossings to East Malaysia on turboprop. But if you want to do medical charters to Sumatra, that isn't too difficult to do, right? Yes. But generally, it's going to be a function of the market and the size of the group to decide whether it is turboprop or jet.
I feel that it might be attractive to the group to be able to say that, okay, we are only going to be traveling with our own members or our own staff. Maybe it gives them more feeling of safety, confidence.
I think so. I think that's why, especially if you have clear itineraries where you are able to track and trace. So one example is, if you look at Singapore, their strategy is very clear: test, trace, vaccinate. Test, trace, vaccinate. So what do we do in the itinerary, right? We make sure all our travelers are vaccinated. You test all the travelers before and after the itinerary. And you can trace, because the itinerary is so clear-cut. You know where their movements are. So if you can test, trace, and vaccinate for the travelers, I think you can create an easy experience, and you're going to create confidence for people to come back to travel.
That's wonderful. We're going to take a little look at the live right now, the live stream on the PCEB Facebook page. And if you're on there, please do type in hi, say hi to Philip and myself, so we can give you a bit of acknowledgement. And also, if you have any questions to pose to Mr. Philip C., the CEO of Firefly, please do type that in, and our staff over at PCEB will be vetting through and feeding them to me. Yeah, so let's take a look. Let's see who's on here. Okay. Vilma DeClaro, welcome to you, Vilma. Miss Joey and Mr. Leon Tan. Sajendra, welcome to you. That's right. And all of you who are on the show, welcome to Coffee Break with PCEB. Okay, let's go and see if we have got any questions at all. Matron? Questions came in. Okay, there's a question. How aggressive will your pricing strategy be when you open up direct flights, JB, KK, Kuching?
A good question. Look, we're going to start new, and so we have to introduce ourselves to the market. So pricing will be aggressive in the initial stages, but as we mature and build, we're going to be pricing competitively. That's my take. But I do think in the beginning, when we start introducing services, we will have to be a bit more aggressive than usual.
I see. You mentioned earlier on your app or website, you have begun selling also hotel rooms, attractions, that kind of packages, maybe ground arrangements?
Yes. So what will happen is that generally, we don't sell the cheap fares alone. If you do, we will bundle it with packages so that we want people to buy the whole experience on Firefly. And one thing we've learned in the whole pandemic is people want to be able to have control over the itinerary and want to see the full journey from end to end. So I think bundling, packaging is something that could really ramp up a lot. So, but it's too early to say yet in terms of what the industry is looking at there. But I think that's something that could move very fast.
I see. So, what is your best seller so far? What would you say? I mean, from the time that you had last year and maybe a bit early this year.
The classics, Langkawi, the islands in Terengganu, they generally do well. What we see for Firefly is that the 4-star, 5-star do better than the 2-star, 3-star, because our segment is a bit more upper premium. And that's one of the biggest challenges we have, because when we launch services from Penang to JB, Bikai, Kuching, we will have to touch the mass market. And so that's something we have to work towards.
I see. And how's the response from the travel trade to working with Firefly so far? Are they keen? They're excited?
Yeah, so travel trade, of course, is so keen to work, right? I mean, in this time when everybody wants to build business, there's been really no objections or issues. It really is coming down to the commercials and the pricing that makes it work. And that really is the big challenge that everybody has, because everybody has to manage their overheads. But if you talk about intention, really no one is saying, no, I'm being selective or not. There isn't that situation at the moment.
When you talk about Singapore, so far, have you been flying directly Penang, Singapore?
We don't. So because our ATRs don't have the range to do Penang, Singapore. But one of the things that, with jet operations is that we are going to look carefully at whether Penang, Singapore is feasible. But it's complicated. It takes into account many things, whether we get the right timings, the flight times to make that work. But yes, Penang, Singapore is a pretty lucrative route and something we would actively pursue end of next year.
Wonderful. So much to look forward to. I remember those days when you're flying to Phuket, you bought the plane at 2 p.m. here in Penang, and because of the time difference, you land in Phuket also at 2 p.m. It's so perfect. You'll be in Patong by 3. It's just ideal,
Yes.
I hope you get your good time slot back again.
So hotel leisure markets require the afternoon arrivals and departures. So the beauty about Firefly is that, for business travelers, they want morning and evening departures. And for leisure travelers, they want afternoon arrivals and departures to fit in with the check-in times. We will have to design our aircraft rotation to take into account all these different customer demands. So that's why it's very important as a business, never to say, I only work with a certain segment or that segment, because we run a business where we basically work towards customizing to different customers with the same asset that we have.
Yes. And you still find that people like to fly into Subang as well when they travel to KL, because it's just nearer to the city than flying out to KLIA.
For sure. And it's for a very simple reason. Because the flight time is so short, the door-to-door experience is very important. So let's say if you are flying 5-6 hours, it perhaps doesn't matter whether it's Subang or KLIA, because the flight time is long. But if the flight time is only 1 hour, the ground transport really matters. And that is why people will be willing to pay more to fly on a turboprop from Penang to Subang versus Penang to KLIA.
I see. We've got a couple of minutes left. You want to talk a little bit about, I see you with your setup, the microphone, the earphones. It looks very, very professional, and the way that you present as well, so smooth. You tell us a little bit about the secret behind that.
The secret? No, so I mean, I've been in this business for some time, but I also do a side gig as a radio presenter at BFM. But that takes up maybe every alternate week of my time. So that's what I do in my free time. And I enjoy doing it because you get to learn all sorts of things. You learn to be to present and to be eloquent and to articulate your thoughts better. And it helps me in my job as Firefly CEO because I see a broader view of the world, and it gives me clarity about what kind of decisions I need to make for the business.
And you get to interview a lot of interesting decision makers as well, yeah? Movers and shakers.
Yes, it is part of the job. But I must say, in my whole career, even before Firefly, working in Malaysia Airlines, having worked in government, doing my own business, I think every experience is unique. Every experience brings something to the job. And I'm very blessed to have had all these experiences. Yeah.
Wonderful. I know you have a great team working under you. I've always enjoyed the wonderful service from the Firefly cabin crew, and just lots of great memories going to many wonderful places with Firefly. We've just got a couple of minutes left on the show, so maybe a little bit of a roundup conclusion, the things that you look forward to, your personal hopes for the company, for the aviation industry, for tourism as a whole. Maybe you can share with us.
Yeah, so I really hope that, the government has laid out a phase 1 to phase 4 plan. I really hope that the government will not adopt the close first, open last approach for tourism industry. I really hope they don't do that because a lot of jobs are at stake here. And it's very important to be thoughtful and find the right balance between lives and livelihoods. So in my view, I think we just all need to get vaccinated. That's number 1. And number 2, I think if we are all vaccinated and we hit a certain threshold of getting vaccinated, we should start giving people the opportunity to travel and reconnect. Because that's how we're going to become better versions of ourselves. If we go out there and see our world and we reconnect with our relationships in person and in physical. And when we start doing that, the airlines that are agile, that will basically introduce capacity at the right time, will be the ones that will do well. So my view is that A, everybody, let's all get vaccinated. B, let's push to introduce and accelerate the reopening, especially for those who have been vaccinated and for markets where we've hit a threshold of vaccination rates. And thirdly, I think in the industry, we have to be more agile because I think it will be a roller coaster for the next 6 months. So everybody just needs to be humble and be willing to adapt and be agile in these very difficult times.
So thank you so much once again, Mr. Philip See, the CEO of Firefly Airlines, for your time with us today on Coffee Break with PCEB. And to all those of you watching the show with us today, thank you so much. Do remember to share and tell your friends about it. On Thursday, we've got our next guest lined up. It's Ms. Kwadidi, and she's a conference organizer specializing in medical conferences. Yeah, very key to our business events market. So please do tune in and catch us on Thursday, 3:30 p.m. Philip, thank you once again. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.